All right, let's dive into one of the biggest questions out there right now. How does an AI really stack up against the human brain? On one hand, they're getting crazy similar in sheer scale, but as we're about to see, their actual designs, well, they're worlds apart.
So that's the real question, isn't it? When you see an AI that can reason and talk and even get creative, it's so easy to think, are we just building a silicon version of what's inside our own skulls?
But before we can even get into that comparison, we have to take a step back and just appreciate how far AI has come. And wow, how fast it all happened. What used to be a niche academic thing has just exploded.
I mean, think about it. Today's AI isn't just a text machine. It writes code, it's helping scientists make breakthroughs, it can understand images and sound, it generates video, and it does things that honestly feel really creative. And that's why the comparison to a human brain is so hard to resist.
Okay, so with all those capabilities, you'd think we're getting super close to just replicating a brain, right? Well, this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Because on the surface, yeah, they're getting similar in size, but underneath, the blueprints couldn't be more different.
Let's start with biology's benchmark, the human brain. You're looking at roughly 100 times trillion synapses. Those are the connections between our neurons that basically create our thoughts, our memories, everything. It is just a staggering, mind-boggling number.
Now, let's look at the AI side. The biggest models out there are estimated to have over 1 trillion parameters, which are kind of the artificial version of synapses. So, in terms of pure scale, they are definitely in the same ballpark now. But this is pretty much where the similarities stop.
Right, because that similarity in scale is hiding a huge difference in architecture. Most AI models are what you'd call feed-forward. Information comes in one end, gets processed in a straight line, and an answer comes out the other end. The brain, though, it's all about dense feedback loops. It's a constant, messy, ongoing conversation between all its different parts.
And here's a perfect way to think about what that really means. You experience it all the time. If you read the name Harry in a book about wizards, you instantly think of Harry Potter, right? But if you see that same name in an article about the royal family, you think of Prince Harry. Your brain didn't just process the word, it used all the surrounding context to change how you see it. That's a feedback loop in action.
So why is the brain built that way? Why all the messy feedback loops? Well, it all comes down to being a masterclass in efficiency, something that evolution has been tweaking for millions of years.
The brain has all these incredible little tricks up its sleeve. For one, it uses something called sparsity. Only a tiny fraction of your neurons are actually firing at any one moment, which saves a ton of energy. Then you've got chemicals like dopamine that act like little volume knobs, turning signals up or down depending on what's important. It's also event-driven, so it's not wasting power processing nothing. And, this is a big one, memory and processing are in the exact same place.
And what's the result of all that incredible efficiency? Get this. Our entire conscious experience, all that complex thinking and feeling, runs on just 20 watts of power. That is barely enough to power a dim light bulb. It's just wild.
Now put that next to AI. We're talking 20 watts for the brain versus the megawatts needed for the giant data centers that run these big AI models. That's not just a difference, it's an energy gulf. And this isn't just a fun fact, it's a massive fundamental roadblock if we want to keep scaling AI in a sustainable way.
But this unbelievable efficiency hasn't gone unnoticed. You know who's been paying very close attention? AI researchers. In fact, they're now turning directly to the brain's own blueprint for some serious inspiration.
A fantastic example of this is something called mixture of experts, which is an architecture used in models like GPT-4. So instead of the entire giant network firing up for every single question, it only activates specialized parts, kind of like how your brain uses specific areas for language and other parts for vision. It's a much smarter way to work.
And that's really just the beginning. People are now building neuromorphic chips that try to copy the brain's energy-saving spikes. They're designing models that can, adjust how much effort they use depending on how hard a problem is. And they're trying to figure out how to get these things to learn from way, way less data.
But we have to be really clear here. These are still just very clever approximations. They're not true replications. The efficiency tricks in AI are engineered. They're not a natural result of having to survive. The feedback is simulated, not the result of truly tangled, interwoven circuits like in the brain. So where does all of this leave us? It kind of points to this fascinating idea. Maybe AI isn't on a path to become a brain after all. Maybe what we're actually seeing is the emergence of two completely different paths to intelligence.
Here's a really powerful way to think about it. A pacemaker does the job of helping a heart beat,
but it looks nothing like actual heart tissue. You see? Function doesn't require mimicry. This might mean that AI is destined to augment how we think without ever being a direct copy of how we think.
And that leaves us with a final question that's probably going to define the next 100 years. As these artificial systems get smarter and grow even more different from their biological inspiration, you really have to start wondering, does intelligence even require a brain at all?